Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and I've got Mike here from Loftness. We've got my skid loader and his skid loader and 4 different Loftness attachments here. A couple of mulchers, an older style, and a flail mower. And as much as we have time, we're going to try to do some cool stuff and demonstrate it, but also talk about the size of these attachments and how they fit on different skid loaders. So, real quick, you want to tell them what we've got right here?
Sure thing, Brock. These 2 machines here, these 2 heads are from our Battle Axe series. That's kind of our flagship right now for drum mulchers. It's been an evolution over the years, since the early carbide cutters to the G2, G3, G4, and now this is where we're at. Both these machines feature a depth limiting style rotor to help get you through the tough stuff without bogging down too much. And that's kind of the direction the industry has gone. What we have here are the 2 differences. We have a standard series over there at about 2,500 pounds for a 61-inch cut, and we have the light series here that's 1,400 pounds for a 61-inch cut. These L series machines are made for skid steers that are under 9,500 pounds. So with John Deere, especially now with the newer 325s picking up their game to 31 to 32 gallons a minute, it should run it pretty hard. But this machine, like a SVL 75 Kubota, TL8 Takeuchi, they kind of fit in an overlap area where they could run the light or the full size. It kind of just depends on how much weight you want hanging up front, what you're trying to do. Where this 31 gallons might run that one, it would run it well. Should run this one really great.
All right, so we're going to try to clear into this, and I don't know what's in there. Do you have any idea?
Well, a fairly idea. I know there's an old terrace in there. I know there's some down brush, blackberries, cherry saplings, and some larger material. So it's I'm going to discover it at the same time you do.
Yeah, there's some trees that are too big, but I think this will be a good mix. And if you go to somebody's property, you don't know what's in there either.
The best thing you can do is, best time of year to mulch is when the foliation is down, in the winter. That's the best time, but it's already past that. So we're going to do what we can do.
Yeah, I'm going to get him in the machine first to show me how and let him get some air conditioning, because it's good and hot out here.
It is, and Brock's going to need to school me up on the 325G.
All right, let's do it. So he's actually got 4 different types of mulchers here and a flail mower. And we managed to run all of them but one. And we also get out the big ASV 120 horsepower machine. think?
Well, I was a little bit surprised kind of babying into it with the 325. Used to kind of running the 120 over there, and it's a brutal machine, and this one here is holding its own, especially paired up with this little Battle Axe L series. Like we found out going in there, you don't really know what's in there, so you got to kind of ease your way in. So we had a decent sized tree. Granted, it wasn't super solid. This one here, if we wanted to spend the time on it, we could mulch it down to nothing, but I wanted to show what those planer teeth do is they actually plane the wood off. That's getting to be a common tooth within the industry. The old standby down from where Brock lives are carbide teeth. They're a little more durable in the rock, but when you can get away with using knives, cleaner job and a lot more productivity and at a lower cost. So that would work for me. What would work for Brock would be probably something a little different, like carbides.
Well, I was impressed by that, and keep in mind that my Deere dealer told me that I couldn't run a mulcher on this machine. The only thing that they had that you could run a mulcher on was a 333. It's because they're not in the mulcher business. They've got like one mulcher, I guess. I don't know, but handling that just fine. We'll talk about in a little bit. The next issue is hydraulic cooling, but I've been impressed so far.
I'm liking it.
Let's go take a look at what we cut here.
And the more we back up, the finer the mulch gets. It's more reprocessing against that shear bar. So that's why we don't have a door on the front of ours to make small chips. It's because we don't need to. We can reprocess as much as we'd like. The more times we go over it backwards, back dragging as they call it, the cleaner the job gets. If we're just out in open pasture and it doesn't have to look state park pretty, grind up what you got to grind up and move on. Start mulching up near the house where all your guests are going to see it, then you can still pretty it up.
So that was the part I didn't understand at all, was the technique that he used of coming in a little higher. That lets you see kind of what you're doing, and then coming back on the ground and truly mulching up what's left.
We could certainly go down deeper and take care of the rest of this. And the operator, whether it's on this machine, a larger one or a smaller one, they kind of have to figure out what works. How much time are they going to spend on this versus taking down the rest of the stuff? Obviously, all that thicket of cherry saplings over there, it went down pretty quick, went real easy. We start increasing diameter, and the volume of material you're trying to mulch goes up exponentially. A 2-inch tree doesn't have half of the wood a 4-inch tree. The 4-inch tree has 3 to 4 times the amount of material you're trying to shove through there. So we got to keep that in mind, you know, going from this to that to something large diameter.
Yep. I think the biggest thing I keep in mind is that when you're thinking how big of a tree can I mulch up with this, by the time it's too big to mulch, you got thousands and thousands of pounds hanging over your head. So you got to keep in mind, you know, what's going to happen to the top of that whenever you do mulch through it. So that's a good size. If it's bigger than that, you need to have your chainsaw out.
I would agree.
Yeah.
So
this is the same skid loader. This is the same mulcher. The only difference in this footage is that I'm the one running it. And keep in mind, this is my first time ever using an attachment like that, so I'm just learning the technique. Basically, the biggest mistake I was making here that Mike pointed out to me is when I was back dragging it, I was engaging the ground a little too hard. And it's not like that's going to tear anything up,
just dulls your blades a little bit and robs the power from your machine. So that was a pretty good sized tree that I cut off up high. And now when you see me not really moving, I'm just grinding down the remaining trunk basically a couple inches off the ground and leave a low stump. You can actually go all the way down below ground level if you want, but it wears on the teeth a little bit doing that, and this isn't my mulcher head. Then I drug the tree top out into the opening so I could see it better and mulched it from the end. It would have been smarter to mulch it from the other end, but this worked fine. My biggest takeaway here is that even a rookie operator can clear quite a bit of ground in a very short period of time.
Point I would want to get across is you don't have to have a machine like that, a full frame, full power, $100,000, sometimes more machine to get in the game. We make the stuff so that we can run with people that already have machines, whether in their 75 or lower horsepower range, older machines. You know, if you've got the latest, greatest Caterpillar, Kubota, John Deere, you know, the biggest, baddest one they make, well, more power to you. But, you know, for farmer rancher types that want to keep their field edges clean, reclaim crop ground or pasture, you know, that's a big part of the market in my region. So that's what I want people to see, is you don't have to go full bore to get in the game.
You can spend a fortune on a forestry kit for one of these too, with like the extra bracing on top and the cooler and the door. The only thing I did was the severe duty door.
The door,
is that what you would recommend?
The door is the absolute minimum, and that's for the operator safety. And it doesn't matter if you say that you're going to be careful or you know your land or whatever else. The dirt and the rock chips, them coming through in on you, that's not that hazardous. Where we get problems with hooking up in old wire, old T-posts, things like that, that's what poses a real hazard to the operator. So Door at a minimum. Most forestry machines have those couplers guarded. They're vulnerable. That's not going to hurt the operator, but it's expensive and messy when you break one off. So the guards are great on that. You know, the more you guard it, the harder they are to couple and decouple, but that's the price you pay. For ref ROPS protection, falling protection, that machine there came with it. And that's what we have to remember, like Brock said, when trees get big, they get heavy. And I've heard people say that's what the ROPS is for. Well, ROPS is rollover protection. That's not what it's for. There's FROPS, falling object protection. And still, we don't want to try it out.
Okay, so the next thing we've got here is a flail mower that is rated, even you could run it on a smaller machine than mine. This specific one is only up 21 or 20 gallons per minute hydraulic flow. Do they have them that you guys make a flail mower that runs on higher, or?
We do. We have this flail mower. This happens to be a 72-inch, and we make a 90-inch version. And that can be with or without case drain for the lower flowing machines, and we can have these set up to run all the way up to 40 gallons a minute. So it's another way of mowing. The weight is up close to your hitch, so it, you know, especially for hillsides, they're more forgiving on gravel. Unlike some of the rotaries that hang way out, maybe a flail mower is a good idea. This one's not rated for double duty to cut brush and the grass and stuff. If you try to limit it to, let's call it the rule of thumb, you really not brush bigger than your thumb. So that's what these are for. We have more heavy duty things like you just saw for trees and brush, but this is mostly grass, weeds, and this light buck brush like Brock might tackle here in a minute.
I could never cut like that with the brush cutter.
No, and that's what I was hoping you'd point out. That discharge to the rear keeps it from windrowing. And like Brock and I were talking about, there's also two 3-point models for compact tractors. What we have on that is either a 72 or 90-inch wide. So anywhere between a 25 and 40 horsepower tractor, maybe a little bit more, you can get a lot of mowing done, like the John Deere that I see Brock has on the videos. 72 or 90-inch 3-point mower, you know, you'd be cleaning house with it, and it wouldn't have all the weight suspended far back like a traditional rotary cutter would.
Okay, now what is this machine right here?
Well, that's the timber axe. It's often forgot about because it's been in production for 20 years, so we don't have any press releases on the newest version, latest, greatest. It really hasn't changed that much. Its specialty is especially for lowered power machines. Not saying anything wrong with the 325, but when this was developed 20 years ago and released, skid steers did not put out that much hydraulic flow. So it's unique in how efficiently it uses it. It has a 2-lobe rotor with blades that rotate up. Where we can use it is not in rocky areas, and I've used it myself here on this farm and for grass mowing, as well as brush mulching, where we have waterways and things that are too steep to take a tractor on. I can put that on a skid steer and mow them clean. So it's a versatile farm machine. It comes in on price point a little bit between the L series and the S series battle axe, so there definitely is a place for them. They've been modified extensively here recently for you and have a new lease on life in orchards in California. They're using that to mulch up the prunings.
So you saw me just now mowing and getting a fine finish, like a finish mower or a flail mower. And now I'm going to take that same head and drive into this brush and cut another large tree down and mulch it all the way down to ground level. Even though it's an older design, that's a versatile piece of equipment. Now you're seeing this ASV 120 horsepower forestry machine. And whereas my machine is a general purpose skid steer that can mulch, this machine is built to mulch. It's got the roll cage and the fall protection and 45 gallons per minute of hydraulic flow and a hydraulic cooler. And it can run the disc mulcher or basically any kind of mulcher you want to put on it.
That is a serious machine. That sucker's not playing around.
It's not, and you know, like you figured out, still, when you don't know stuff, the uneven terrain and different materials you have going on there, it's constantly a learning curve. You know, there's plenty of I'm not a full-time operator, so sometimes it works and looks pretty, sometimes it just works.
Yeah.
So,
well, and you didn't spend 15 minutes clearing all that, including 2 large trees and then all the smaller ones.
it would have taken me longer with a chainsaw. I know. So the disc mulcher, if you've seen a previous video where Brock introduced himself at the 4-State Farm Show, we had this disc mulcher, or this model, up on a stand. And for where it fits in the whole hierarchy of this, it is a slash and go machine. It's in a lot of ways, in a lot of areas, you would be better served by a drum style mulcher like what Brock's been running today. But where you're looking to cover big acres fast and it doesn't have to be especially pretty, maybe a disc is right. It will throw bigger pieces of wood. Sometimes it throws them quite far away, so we can't really advocate using them around people, buildings, right-of-ways, animals, because there is a definite hazard involved there. A couple out on the market with a fully machined Quadco disc. That's not just a disc, a piece of round plate steel with tooth holders welded on. That's a fully machined disc we get from Quadco, and it started its life years ago on a Quadco hot saw for timber harvesting on big feller bunchers. It's a durable setup. All the teeth are bolt-on and tooth holders with oversized bushings and clamp bolts through there. So if you should happen to hit something like a manhole or some other thing that would destroy a tooth holder, they're easily replaced without having to rebalance the machine. The big deal on this one is the 5-piston radial motor. So it's good at spinning that 900-pound disc back up once we've lost the energy after processing a tree. It truly is a top-tier machine when it comes to disc mulchers, if a disc mulcher is right for you.
So on these, if you want to just wreak havoc, this is your tool, but there's a lot of downsides to it. In comparison, it's going to leave bigger chunks behind. It's going to be more dangerous throwing stuff, and you need a bigger machine. I can't put this on mine. The hydraulic requirements aren't high enough. And so it's cool, but it may not be the most practical option.
There's a place for it, but and that's why we make it.
Speaking of cool, they've got hydraulic coolers over here. If you're running in high heat or you're running your machine a lot of hours, you may want to think about cooling off the hydraulics. And this mounts on the roof of any model of skid steer that you think you need to cool the hydraulic fluid on, right?
That's correct. It's a universal cooler. Now, we do have it factory engineered mount kits and hose kits for a few models. The Deere 325, 331, and 333, a Takeuchi TL12, and the Kubota SVL 95 or 97. But it can be adapted to cool anything. You can put it on an excavator if you felt like it. So that is the big 140 BTU model. It's really overkill for most applications, unless you're really hitting it hard on these smaller machines, but it definitely does its job. They've introduced or reintroduced a smaller model, primarily targeted towards these mid-sized machines. They've been becoming more and more popular. People are going into the business with smaller machines, and so we have a single fan unit that cools at a 95,000 BTU rate. So Brock will probably want one of those so he can run all day and all night through August and July.
Yeah, hopefully someday. And so the last thing I want to say about Loftness is, I always talk about how much I like American-made companies, American-made products, and they're not just American-made, but this is a employee-owned company.
That's correct. It was not too long ago, as it was a family business, it turned into an ESOP. The family was bought out of it, and now we are employee-owned. So these machines are made in Hector, Minnesota. So our name is more known in certain regions. So sometimes when I'm at a trade show, people will say, "Hey, Mike, are you the owner?" Oh, a little bit. So we all are owners, and that helps out in the quality we want to deliver and it's just a great thing.
Yep. So if you're actually in the market for one of these, check out Loftness. Great company. If you're anywhere around here, Mike will bring it to your house.
Well, we certainly could work on that.
It's a possibility. I'm making promises for him, but I
Yeah.
appreciate you, Mike, taking the time to
Thank
show
you, Brock.
me everything. And I'll put some more of our videos on the screen, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, but good fun.